Good evening to all of you, depending on where you're joining us from. I'm so happy to welcome you all to the first session in this track on the final day of the 3 days of Sustainability Festival, the Thai Sustainability Summit, the largest summit hosted by Thai Hyderabad. And also very glad to share with you that we have had over 41,000 registrations for the event. And I must say it is a big feat for any organizer, and in this case, Thai Hyderabad. I am Smita Mishra, and I'm the founder CEO of Pandoro Technologies, which is a SaaS startup and consulting firm that helps businesses become positive through the adoption of UN Sustainable Development Goals framework. We help enterprises build purpose-led businesses by identifying and managing their sustainability-related risks and opportunities. I'm a young sustainability innovator as part of the YSIP program of the United Nations Global Compact. Just to share, Pandoro has also been awarded the Startup of the Year for SDGs in India just last month. The award was jointly given by NASCOM, Mighty Government of India, and the UN Women. And I'm here as your moderator for the session today, and I would like for my panelists to join us here so I can do some context setting for the session. Tharun and Amit. Yeah. All right.
Thanks, Smita.
Okay, great. So before I get started with the conversation, a quick pointer for the audience. Dear audience, we love having questions. It makes us feel that we could really reach you and engage with you. So please do share yours and try doing that before maybe 40 minutes into the session so we can bring them in time. Coming back to the conversation, the topic of our current session is strategies for conservation, restoration, and sustainable use of freshwater ecosystems. Terrestrial ecosystems provide a series of goods, raw materials for construction and energy, food, and a series of ecosystem services, including the capture of carbon, maintenance of soil quality, provision of habitat for biodiversity, maintenance of water quality, as well as regulation of water flow and erosion control, and thus contributing to reduce the risks of natural disasters such as floods and landslides, regulate climate, and maintain the productivity of agricultural systems. Now, maintaining these ecosystems greatly support climate change mitigation and adaptation efforts. And today we are particularly focusing on the freshwater ecosystem. Freshwater ecosystem is essential for our planet. It includes rivers, lakes, wetlands, streams, and underground aquifers. They store and clean the water that's crucial for people and wildlife. So healthy freshwater environments supply water for drinking, growing crops, manufacturing, energy, and transport. And to discuss this critical subject, I have with me two leading entrepreneurs who, with their great dedication and innovation, are working towards maintaining a healthier ecosystem for freshwater in the country. So let me introduce the two esteemed panelists to the audience. We have with us Mr. Tharun Kumar. Tharun has over 20 years of experience in the field of IT and sustainability, particularly deep expertise in sustainable solutions in sewage treatment. He held a rich mix of experience in technical as well as business leadership positions in the past. Prior to starting ECOSTP, he was program managing the IT security for Aadhaar, the Government of India Unique Identification Project. He had in the past held leadership positions for Sutherland, ICICI, OneSource, Cable and Wireless, Hughes, and Motorola. In his current role, Tharun is focusing on harnessing ancient knowledge and practically applying it for today's environmental problems, specifically wastewater treatment. Welcome, Tharun. And our other speaker our other speaker is Mr. Amit Nayak. Amit is the co-founder and CEO of Indra Water. With a master's degree in mechanical engineering from the University of Washington in Seattle, he and his team are solving complex real-world problems in water and energy. They're tackling the problem of water scarcity and pollution with their innovations and solutions for decentralized wastewater treatment and recycling for reuse applications. Their work has received numerous awards and has been recognized by World Water Week 2019 Stockholm, Forbes Sustainability Changemaker Summit, Cleantech Group, and Millennium Alliance, amongst others. They have recycled over 400 million liters of water already, thereby positively impacting the lives of thousands of people. With Indra, Amit aims to accelerate the transition of sustainable water and energy management. So welcome, Amit. It's a pleasure to have you both on the panel.
Thank you, Smita.
Yeah, so while I have given a quick introduction of yours, I think the audience will greatly appreciate if you could also share a quick overview of your work in your respective initiatives. Tharun, if you want to go first.
Yeah, thanks, Smita. Yeah, so Tharun here, ECOSTP, we have been here, we are a 4-year-old startup into wastewater treatment. So to strictly put it in a simple words, we take bad water, make it good water without using any power or chemicals. So that's a USP. No power, no chemicals, no moving parts. Traditional, very old method, we just innovated, improved it. And it's based on a cow stomach. So it's completely civil structure we do. We can even call it a well improvised septic tank. So we use a natural wetland, again, an old concept, and we put it all in a solution for corporates, apartments, associations, hospitals, schools, temples, churches, etc. So that's what we do. So bad water, good water, no power, no chemicals. We are a 4-year-old startup. Thanks.
Thanks, Tharun. Amit, you want to share quickly about your work?
Yeah. So we are also pretty similar to what we do in what Tharun is doing with EcoSTP. So we are a 3-year-old company, and our primary focus has been recycling wastewater at the point of source. So all the wastewater, whether it's from industries, it can be effluents, it can be the sewage water that we generate in residential and commercial complexes. We use electricity to do it. We also do not use any chemicals. We try to be eco-friendly. One of the advantages with our approach is that we're a broad spectrum pollution removal process, which means that we can deal with pathogens, we can deal with heavy metals, we can deal with even radioactive waste, we can deal with petrochemicals, oil and grease, a lot of different kind of pollutants very effectively. And we can work over a very wide range of shock value. Now, that is one of the major reasons why a lot of conventional systems had failed. They could not respond to sudden changes in pollutant content. So that is something which we solve. And because our systems are electrically driven, they're extremely compact and modular, which is in line with what is the requirement in our cities, because most of our places are space-starved. So we are able to fit these modules very easily, treat water as it flows through our system, because we pretty much do not have any retention time. It is almost like water is treated as it flows through a pipe. So putting all these together, we're able to achieve our objective of treating water at the source without, affecting major changes in terms of infrastructure at the customer's end, and enabling them to recover almost all the water that goes into the system. And the water that we give is non-potable grade water. And we all know that in our daily activities, we do not require potable grade water for everything. Pretty much 60 to 70% of activities are non-potable grade. So initially, we are targeting to offset this freshwater demand first, so that we can remove this 60-70% of from the actual inbound requirement, so that just 30% is something that people require from freshwater sources. So that is how we are trying to change the scope. We're trying to reduce pollution, and we're trying to offset this demand. Yeah.
Wow, that's some innovation there, and absolutely thrilling, both of you. I really hope the institutions and enterprises around are listening to this. And but let me the conversation further. Let me ask you this. And while I don't want to make this entire conversation as round robin and asking the same questions to both of you, but I'm going to ask this one at least to both of you. Fresh water is the lifeblood for our planet, and freshwater ecosystems connect people with the resources they need to thrive. But when these rivers and lakes, wetlands, they get degraded, and their ability to provide reliable supplies for clean water and to support these species on which millions of people depend is threatened. Now, clearly, the planet's freshwater ecosystems are in crisis. I mean, to the fact that researchers found that populations of monitored freshwater species have fallen by 84%, and nearly 1/3 of wetland ecosystems have been lost since 1970 due to human activities that degrade habitats and decrease water quality. So what is really going on with our ecosystem, particularly with respect to water ecosystem? Like, situation is clearly deteriorating, and what in your view could be the implications of this rapid deterioration of our ecosystems? Tharun, you may want to go first. You're on mute.
Yeah, I guess the obvious big problem we are all facing, right? And it's like we all need water, but water is getting polluted and polluted. So anything you take, any of your water source, whether it's a rivers or is it even the sea is now getting polluted because of the reverse osmosis and other desalination that's going on. So every water source is polluted. The groundwater is polluted as well as the lakes and other things. So even though if you look at many places now, the groundwater contains E. coli. So groundwater should not contain E. coli because it's in borehole. It's way down. So bacteria cannot go bore all the way down to the, but still you can find E. coli. So it reached that level. All the water bodies are polluted. Something like, if you look at case like Bangalore and all, 80% of the sewage of the city straight goes to the water bodies. 80%, right? Is huge. So naturally the water bodies cannot able to hold on to the huge pollution that drives in. And yeah, so that's bad the situation is. I mean, we can put we can say we don't know what's going on and we can leave it, but clearly we are reaching that tipping point.
Absolutely. Yeah, Amit, you want to add to that?
Yeah, he's absolutely. So and it's not just E. coli which has reached the groundwater resources. It's alarming to know there's heavy metal that is leached in. We also find forever chemicals in the water aquifers down there. PFAS, which the West has become, kind of they're aware about it and they're trying to fix it. We're taking a little more time to react, but then these are real issues because they have a direct impact on public health. Apart from that, polluting our inland water bodies like the lakes, the inland river streams. Like if you take the case of Mumbai, the simple case of all the inland river bodies getting choked means that every monsoon season, the city floods because there is no space for the extra water to runoff water to go. And more importantly, the water that is available, if you're polluting that in-house, the local ecosystems completely break down. And that also affects any indigenous communities that are living around it.
Yeah.
You are pretty much breaking down, and that can be seen in the impact that has happened to the mangroves, which are all across the city because we are constantly, losing them. We're losing the local biodiversity and ecosystems. It is affecting the community, the livelihoods of the people. It is also affecting public health, apart from all the heavy metals and everything that's gone into the water aquifers, which is becoming almost impossible to deal with. So if this continues at this rate, we may not have much to save and much less to live with. So it has to be fixed now.
This is as scary situation as you tell me. But then solutions like yours, Amrit, right? How can solutions like yours really help?
So one of the things we have always been in is that we have always tried to solve solutions by accumulating all the problems, which means in the case of water, we've always thought about considering all the areas, all the buildings, all the establishments, bring all of that water, the pollutants to one place and get it done with. We have always believed in a centralized approach. But the problem here is that centralized approaches are extremely resource intensive and difficult to build within a given time frame. However, the gap between demand and supply is not following the same trajectory. It is widening at a much faster rate compared to the rate at which we are able to plug this gap, which means that a fresh approach is, which is where we come in. What we are talking about is that if we target individual buildings, we can build a solution much quicker. Let's say a conventional plant takes 5 months to put up and another month to stabilize. We can build a plant in 30-35 days because our plants are modular. They're almost like an automobile, very easy to put together, very assemble. Because we are talking about mass producing water systems, which can deal with at least with a range of pollutants effectively. Because not all if you're not talking about industry, at least you're talking about the sewage side, water does not change a lot compared to how industrial effects change. So at least that part, we can mass produce these systems, number one. Number two is when you're talking about freshwater bodies, let's say you're talking about a lake. So for example, we did a case study in Kudikunta Lake in Hyderabad with the help of Telangana Water Resource Development Corporation. What we noticed is that the small industries surrounding that place and the residential complexes, there were small nallas which were, dumping all those wastes coming from all these places into this lake. Now, 10 years back, the same lake was a thriving ecosystem. there were, you had migratory birds, you had, all kinds of, insects, a lot of things in there. And people could actually use that place for recreation. But now the place stinks. So what we believe in, if we can identify these sources, we can put up modular solutions along these individual input streams and remove the major pollutant load. And we believe that is where we come in. So either you can target individual buildings and ensure that the pollutant, the sewage, the liquid waste does not leave the establishment, or we tap the input points across these freshwater bodies, them out, treat them, and allow the ecosystem or the natural freshwater body to rejuvenate or to kind of revive. Because nature has its own way of healing. We just need to give it time.
Yeah, absolutely.
And modular solutions are the way to go.
Absolutely in agreement with you, Amit. We do need disruptive thinking. Traditional ways of treatments or setting up treatment plans clearly are not working. We don't have to look at futuristic data to manage the supply and demand. Our current demands are not worked on. So yeah, it's clearly failing us. So I'll come to you, Tharun, there at this point. That we are seeing solutions like yours, and we are seeing solutions like yours and Amrit's. And what are the key challenges then, or root causes, that we are still continually degrading the state of affairs? Like, why are we not able to show some big progress in this space, even when we are having solutions like yours, Amrit's, and maybe there are many more coming up?
Yeah, I think it's more how do you want to position yourselves from the regulatory point of view, right? We all love toilets, so we keep making a lot of toilets. That toilet gets more TRPs, more space, and the tons of toilets have been made, but no one looks at how do you treat it. Now that's one part of it. So I have a problem is visibility. This good to toilets also a big issue, right? Which is someone is solving it, but someone has to solve it. Now, how do you solve it? Solving it needs the current tech needs lots of chemicals, whatever available today. Which is, I would say, I'm not discounting mine and Amrit's. I'm talking 99.9% of the STPs across here is based on a simple premise that you blow air through fecal matter. So that's a tech. Blow air through fecal matter, and that gets treated. And any name you say, that's it. Blow. So which means the whole area will smell. That the motor will fail, the blower will fail, and that's the whole thing collapses. And that's what is happening everywhere. So one is the intent to do it. Number, even if I want to do this, there's no tech available, right? And this needs a lot of power, chemicals. So whoever does it, so someone makes this box and then hands over. They don't know how to maintain it, and they run for 6-7 months, and it breaks, and then it stinks, and then it collapses. So that's a systemic issue. So for existing issues like my friend said, we can put decentralized solutions. Like instead of being one big one, make a small ones for the polluter phase, the apartment association or the school of Nala. They let them put a small STP than the big one. And the second part is like once it's all done, we can put decentralized solutions. Someone has to maintain it. So instead of being one big one, make a small. So the maintenance part we don't really take to the polluter phase. And new buildings coming up, there our systems are very apt. Ours is all civil work. It's difficult to break open an old building and the second new building should be an ECOSTP like solution wherein sustainable solution built from scratch, right? You make an STP when you make a building and leave it for generations. Don't even touch it for the new ones. So any new buildings coming up, that's what we've been. We have 90+ installations. Everything we do new building, because old ones is too late for us. Though it's very urgent need. We don't have the point solution. So any new thing we come up, make it sustainable, right? Because you when you make a building, you put all your civil structure in, put all our STP blocks in place, and then let it be on its own. So that's the way to do this. But today we have a huge issue because lots of power is required to run and the tech is broken. So that's a fundamental issue which you're trying to solve.
Clearly, the civil structures are lacking the support required, and of course, power is another issue.
Yeah.
And people not trained to handle even the existing systems.
Yeah.
Means, we continually break the system, and we are not even able to run with the existing systems. Great.
Absolutely.
Puts there, Tharun. Thank you so much. But then this brings me back to you, Amrit. I remember we had this discussion earlier on. that in our prep callers we were talking that we have this solution, right? When I heard about your solution, I was like, wow, I mean, I would like for my RWA to use it. I would like for my office space to use something like this. So, but then why are we not seeing mass adoption of such available solutions? What is it that government or even private players can do towards solving this?
That's a very important observation. One of the fundamental things that has happened is that the compliance with respect to I would first like to focus on the cost of water. Like when you're looking at a city like Mumbai, where the cost of water is very low, especially for the residential and residential complexes, it is the lowest. You're pretty much it varies between 5 to 6 rupees per meter cube of water, which is very low. You talk about the same thing. The same thing is much higher in a city like Bangalore and Delhi. Now, what happens is if your freshwater cost is low, your discharge cost is also low because both the values are pegged to each other. So your overall cost of buying water from a freshwater from the municipal authorities or from a private body and then discharging it, it is not that daunting for you to set up an STP. So there is no economic payback there. Whereas in a city like Bangalore or Delhi or maybe Hyderabad, which are already under water stress and the cost of water is high, there is a sudden, there is a very quick payback possible. Because the moment you start recycling water, you're buying much less fresh water. And the cost of treatment, if it is low, especially in the newer technologies, most of them have become very efficient. And if implemented and done the right way, they work well. So they have a financial incentive to adopt it. Whereas when the cost of water is pretty low, the financial incentive doesn't match up because somebody's going to spend money in lakhs and then the payback is not happening in, let's say, 2 years, 2.5 years, 3 years, which is considered to be a reasonable frame. Then it doesn't work because I have visited many STPs here in Mumbai or even surrounding areas in the western region where the water costs are low. There people have put up plants and 8 years have passed by because the plants have never been operated the right way. They keep breaking down and the cost of water is low. They haven't gotten their payback yet, and they do not have any incentive to keep operating the plant. So there is no incentive. There is lower enforcement. All of this have come together to complicate the issue. Of course, of late we are seeing better compliance. Of late we are seeing people who have become more aware, more progressive in their thought. We are seeing government bodies enforcing this better. We are also seeing regulations become stricter. So all of it are coming together to drive this new change. But we will need to, improve the financial conditions. We'll need to improve the financial viability to make it active. Because any new product, sustainability per se has always suffered because it was never glamorous. As simple as that. I've just put it as simple as that. And everything else around had so many financial incentives around it that people could multiply money on top of that. Now, it is high time that if we are polluting, it cannot be so that it is easier to pollute, it is cheaper to pollute, and it is more expensive to not pollute.
Absolutely.
And the other thing I would say is that we do not have a differential pricing structure for the kind of pollutants we generate. Most of the time, we are only charged on the basis of the volume of wastewater we are generating. So if there's a common effluent treatment plant and you have, let's say, a pharma company or a textile company and a few of them in an industrial park, more often than not, they're only charged on the volume of wastewater that is generated because all of it is going and getting dumped into the same collection tank in the common effluent treatment plant. Now, a pharma company is pretty much generating wastewater which is at least about 200 times more polluted than a textile stream. And the pharma company's profit margins are 1000% more than the textile. Yeah. Then why should both of the guys be charged the same amount of money just because of the volume of water? Because the textile guy is going to generate a huge volume of water. So effectively, the textile guy is actually paying more for pollution, and pharma guy is only paying more when he is renewing his licenses. That is unfair. And this needs to be brought in. People should pay for the pollution, which is something which is happening in the West. They have brought in carbon credits and they're also getting charged for the pollutants. But that needs to start happening here. Only then are you going to drive this thing faster.
No, absolutely. And I think even as an individual citizens, we have far too long gotten away without, really paying price for the environmental impact that we are creating with it. I mean, we get water for free or maybe for minimal charges, which is a huge cost of pulling out fresh water right now. All right, Tharun, so I still have to ask you one thing very quickly again on this same topic. So we are seeing that, of course, regulatory norms could be changed and things like that. But when we come to the private players, what are the real benefits of such conservation and restoration work? And is there a way we can really measure the returns on investments? For example, let's say we're working towards water ecosystems, so that helps us in flood protection or habitat preservation. In terms of, can we measure that in terms of direct and indirect impact? In short, why should private businesses care about this? Why should private businesses think about this and invest in this space?
Yeah, like Amit said, unless water as a resource is valued, it's very tough to put a return on investment layer on top of it. And also to add on what he said, water scarce places like in Bangalore, water is so scarce, right? So then there's such a possibility. Like we are deploying toilet to tap, right, for some customers, because water is so scarce. My only source is tanker water, which is really dirty. Compared to tanker water, STP treated water is better, much better. So what we do is naturally treated water, which is treated by a ECOSTP, which is hardly any cost. Then run through some additional equipment like ultrafiltration and all, and you give it back to the for bathing purpose. Is portable use, but portable still you have mindset issue. It is for bathing purpose. So we're doing it. So toilet to tap. So we've seeing a lot of thing because of this, because there's a lot of intent to do this, because that's a clear, tangible economic benefit, because the water is cheaper than the tanker water and is cleaner than the tanker water. So we need to have some model wherein this water is valued. Otherwise, it's difficult to justify the overall thing. Unless a large for a private player, of course, for the government comes in, is much more strategic. They can make a plan. Otherwise, it's much tougher to put in place. But toilet tap is something we're rooting on. Wherever water is stressed, we believe that water has to be reused. And there's a classic pitch, like for example, how there's nothing like a new water. Water is always old. Same water gets recycled for last years and centuries, right? And there's nothing new water. So you may think that somebody's recycled water is what you're drinking. So tell this concept and then pause and give us a hard data. How bad is your borewell water compared to the water you get from the treated water, and then make a choice among these two, and maybe possibly mix in both, add a little bit of rainwater and make it better, etc., etc. So various techniques. I think that's where the return on investment comes in. That's where we can show the value. The rest is tough to justify.
Absolutely, Tharun. I think that makes a lot of sense, and I think private players should look at it. In fact, just to add to that, I also felt that the mere fact that we are going to protect our freshwater ecosystems by using these technologies and these solutions or other conservation methods, I think if we are able to really reduce flood percentage by any little bit, then that's a huge profit to the insurance companies, to the landowners, to people who are really losing their businesses and machineries and all kind of damage that happens due to flood and human life and healthcare, the stress that goes on healthcare. So I think there are a lot of direct and indirect impacts also. But coming back to you, Tharun, again, your business can really be closely associated with traditional practices. So how might other entrepreneurs, NGOs, and government teams work with the indigenous people and leverage their traditional practices and wisdom to preserve this high value and high yielding heritage?
Right. I mean, I guess a lot of work is happening. How do you get them back on track? But the main infra is kind of broken. The sewer lines are broken. Sewer lines are getting connected with the stormwater drain. So that's broken. The town planning is gone completely. Everywhere you have buildings, so that leads to flooding. And eventually it all leads to some water body. And there's no farmers around. Earlier we had farmers, right? So farmers will remove the silt from the bottom. They keep on removing the silt. It's a good fertilizer, and they do some fishing. So someone takes care of this. Now all the farmers are gone. It's an urban population. So there's no one really to take care of the fragile infrastructure built in. So, and then coming back to the sewage that comes in, like my friend said, you can have the lake itself can treat water, sewage to some extent, right? So that's how it will be always, right? We have at the bottom, we have to get a little technical, bottom we have an aerobic layer, top you have an aerobic layer, then have sunlight. So it actually treats. So that's how it's supposed to be, right? Little bit of sewage coming from a nearby village is okay because lake can treat it. But now it's all gone. There's too much sewage that comes in. It's completely collapsed. So tough to get a local people to really work in this because they know the solution. They've done it in the past. They've done for centuries. They know how to do it. Their grandfathers have done it. And given a chance, they'll develop. And we have been making effort. At least in Bangalore, we've been trying hard to get them back and use those to resolve it along with some NGO help. But it's a long, long way to go. It's a systemic issue. It's not easy, which you can. That's a fact, right? We can't go and easily fix it. How much water we can try. It's a hard reality we have to face. Yeah.
Absolutely, Tharun. I think the population is putting up a lot of stress, whether it is urban areas or rural areas. The population explosion in cities or even in villages now is putting a lot of stress on our existing infrastructure. All right, we have about 3 more minutes. So I'm going to quickly ask you one question before we see if we have any audience questions. So do you have any final thoughts on the subject, particularly for the budding entrepreneurs in this space? Maybe if you could share what are some of the problem areas or evolving areas that could offer entrepreneurial opportunities for the entrepreneurs, and even maybe if we have investors listening into that, what are the areas you see which are really picking up with the investors also globally? Amrit, you want to go first?
Yeah. So I think there are 3 important areas where I see a lot of development that can happen, and I see those areas really picking up and helping this whole sustainability thing going forward. The first is data. It is very important to understand what is our exact water balance. What is the amount of water that we're getting? How much are we collecting? How much are we actually releasing? How much are we reusing? It is important to have a qualitative measure of all these parameters, and only then can we make better decisions. Most of the time today, our decisions are driven by perceptions. We suddenly encounter one water stress season, let's say in a city like Mumbai, and in southern cities we have been experiencing it for quite some time. We have knee-jerk reactions. None of our decisions are based on actual demographic requirements, actual usage patterns, or the kind of pollutant loads. So it is important to start working on and investing in infrastructure that helps us better monitor the quality and quantity of the kind of water resource that we have or use or kind of release. So that is the first aspect to it. The second aspect to it is any asset that we put up. Now, this is the second part. This asset needs to be monitored. So we need better ways to improve the operation and maintenance of any kind of water or any sustainability related asset that is put up. Today, new solutions or older infrastructure are being put up in the name of solid waste management, liquid waste management. But what happens is 6 months or 7 months or 8 months down the line, when you go and visit the same facilities, 90% of them are not operational, at the designed capacity, or many of them have even shut down completely. Now that is scary, and that is also a sad reality, and that needs to change, because if you're never going to operate the assets that you have put up, you're never going to solve the problem. So that is another area. Creating the kind of infrastructure that simplifies the whole process of maintaining, operating, troubleshooting, and reporting problems in these assets, such that effectively you can form a closed feedback loop. So this is where software and analytics and a SaaS-based platform can come in. So that is the role that, and water hasn't had that much of penetration of software, unfortunately. So that is the second area. And the third area, I believe, is more of community involvement. So which is where social enterprises come in, where a lot of CSR activity, a lot of government initiatives, they can encourage a lot of these social enterprises to come together to create community-based solutions that inspire local indigenous communities to also develop livelihoods around infrastructure. I remember one of my friends telling me that in Portugal, during their visits, they had created a very beautiful STP structure in the city which also happened to be a local agriculture hub, a local employment hub, and also a local waste reuse hub. Now, that STP became the sewage treatment plant became the fulcrum of economic activity. It became the fulcrum of waste management and waste disposal, and also became the fulcrum of creating better policies for the future, for the entire city. So this city's development started revolving around it, the public health revolved around it. I think these are three areas where focus needs to improve, and these are amazing areas for new entrepreneurs to start working.
Absolutely. Thanks, Amit. And Tharun, you have.
Yeah, I'll just add more. Everything is broken. So it's a big problem. Everything is broken. So my suggestion is to take a small slice, because you don't underestimate the issue. Once you jump in, there'll be layers and layers, nuances and nuances. Take a small sliver and trying to fix it. Don't try to boil the ocean. You may think you can, but you will quickly run out of energy, money, everything. So take a small sliver and then go deep into it and try to solve that bit and give at least 1,000 days. Don't expect it overnight, right? Just 100 days at least on a small sliver, than doing the whole thing. I think that would be my advice.
Absolutely, Tharun. That's a great advice for the entrepreneurs. And thank you so much, Amit and Tharun. I think pushing water infrastructure into a new era by integrating latest solutions like desalination or the bioprocessing plants that Tharun is speaking about, or the decentralized water treatment plants by managing the demand and supply, as Amit suggests, and solutions that really offer recycling almost 100% of wastewater, have a net zero footprint, and uses renewable energy. These got discussed today, and I think these, and also adding financial innovation in water management. These could be some of the crucial components to work on for each one of us. And with that, I thank our audience and the expert panelists. Truly pleased with our discussion today. Everyone, thank you for joining us and looking forward to the next upcoming session. Thank you, Amit. Thanks, Tharun.
Thank you so much. It has been a real pleasure.
Thank you.